Hello and good evening. President Ram Nath Kovind has given his assent to the three key farm bills cleared by Parliament during the recently concluded monsoon session. This on a day when Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke extensively about the sea change for the better the bills will bring into the lives of the country's farmers without referring to them directly in his radio program Mann Ki Baat. We'll be talking about it with our guests on Newsnight Tonight extensively. I'm Gautam Roy. But first, our headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says the nation's agriculture sector, farmers and villages are the very basis of Atmanirbhar Bharat. If they remain strong, the foundation of self-reliant India will be strong. Declares now farmers have been given the freedom to sell their produce anywhere and to anyone. Here's the farm sector for showing resilience during tough COVID times. Three farm bills get presidential assent. Gazette notifications issued for Farmers' Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill, Farmers' Empowerment and Protection Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill, as well as the Essential Commodities Amendment Bill. Prime Minister Modi reaffirms the importance of storytelling, urges storytellers to propagate inspiring events from the freedom struggle through their stories. The PM also asks people to remain alert to ward off the COVID virus, continue wearing masks and observing social distancing. Home Minister Amit Shah launches Destination Northeast 2020 on the occasion of World Tourism Day, says the region's varied cultural heritage can give it an identity as a tourism destination. Terms the establishment of peace in Northeast as important and says the government's efforts have ensured the region is now known for development and industry instead of terrorism and violence. The centre assures a Ladakhi group of considering its demands for protection of local language, jobs, land and demography positively. The group withdraws the call for boycotting an autonomous body polls in Leh after the government's assurance. Polls schedule advanced after the development. Veteran BJP leader Jaswant Singh breathes his last at the age of 82 at the Army's Research and Referral Hospital in Delhi. He had held external affairs, finance and defence portfolios during the Vajpayee government. Tributes poured in from President, PM and other top leaders from home and abroad. The number of those who've beaten COVID in the country nears the 50 lakh mark, with 92,043 patients having recovered from the infection during the last 24 hours. Recovery rate climbs further to 82.46%. Prime Minister Modi again appeals to people to wear masks and maintain 2 gaz duri. And the second Grand Slam tennis tournament, the French Open, gets underway. Belgium's David Goffin becomes the first seeded player to get knocked out. 19-year-old Italian Jannik Sinner emerges on top in the clash. US Open runners-up Victoria Azarenka begins her campaign with an easy win in the women's singles contest. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded farmers in the latest episode of his radio program Mann Ki Baat 2.0, where he credited them with playing a big role in building Atmanirbhar Bharat. Without referring directly to the farm bills recently passed in the monsoon session of Parliament amidst protests by opposition parties and a section of cultivators, the PM said farmers producing fruits and vegetables benefited from their produce being taken out of the purview of the APMCs, and now grain producers would also be able to derive the same benefits. Here's more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi, through his Mann Ki Baat program, appreciated the patience of farmers in this difficult time. He said agriculture sector in India has again shown its prowess, reflecting the strength of our farmers during crisis.
कोरोना के इस कठिन समय में हमारा कृषि क्षेत्र, हमारा किसान इसका जीवंत उदाहरण है। संकट के इस काल में भी हमारे देश के कृषि क्षेत्र ने फिर अपना दमखम दिखाया है। साथियों, देश का कृषि क्षेत्र, हमारे किसान, हमारे गांव आत्मनिर्भर भारत का आधार है। ये मजबूत होंगे तो आत्मनिर्भर भारत की नींव मजबूत होगी। बीते कुछ समय में इन क्षेत्रों ने खुद को अनेक बंदिशों से आजाद किया है, अनेक मिथकों को तोड़ने का प्रयास किया है। मुझे कई ऐसे किसानों की चिट्ठियां मिलती हैं, किसान संगठनों से मेरी बात होती है, जो बताते हैं कि कैसे खेती में नए नए आयाम जुड़ रहे हैं, कैसे खेती में बदलाव आ रहा है।
Prime Minister spoke about how the various developmental reforms in the field of agriculture are helping farmers across the country. He highlighted the benefits of APMC, Agricultural Produce Market Committee Act, also about how the farm bills and revocation of APMC will help farmers across the nation. He said farmers can now sell their crops elsewhere in the country and there will be no place for middlemen.
जानते हैं इन किसानों के पास क्या अलग है? अपने फल सब्जियों को कहीं पर भी किसी को भी बेचने की ताकत है और ये ताकत ही उनकी इस प्रगति का आधार है। अब यही ताकत देश के दूसरे किसानों को भी मिली है। फल सब्जियों के लिए ही नहीं, अपने खेत में वो जो पैदा कर रहे हैं, धान, गेहूं, सरसों, गन्ना जो उगा रहे हैं, उसको अपनी इच्छा के अनुसार जहां ज्यादा दाम मिले वहीं पर बेचने की अब उनको आजादी मिल गई है। आज की तारीख में खेती को हम जितना आधुनिक विकल्प देंगे उतना ही वो आगे बढ़ेगी, उसमें नए नए तौर तरीके आएंगे, नए इनोवेशंस जुड़ेंगे।
Prime Minister Modi shared innovative and creative methods of farming by farmers of various states. He said farming will grow as much as we provide modern options to it. He said farming sector, farmers, villages are the foundation of Atmanirbhar Bharat. If they are strong, then the foundation of India will also be stronger. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, it's time now on that note for our In Focus tonight, which is all about farming and farmers. Yes, it is Atmanirbhar Kisan, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And to talk about it, we have Dr. Ashok Dalwai with us. He is CEO, National Rainfed Area Authority and also Chairman Committee on Doubling of Farmers' Income. And we also have Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, Editorial Director of Business Standard. Welcome to both of you. First to you, Dr. Dalwai, let me just quote you yourself a few days ago, at the momentous occasion when the bills were brought in and passed. You had written that September 17 is akin to 1965 Green Revolution movement and 1991 industrial delicensing. You were referring to the key farm bills, at least two of them in that particular tweet itself. So just tell us, on what basis are you saying that these bills will prove to be those revolutionary and momentous?
Yeah, what I meant was that 1965 was the major paradigm shift in the productivity and production, and they came on the back of the new production technology, primarily wheat and paddy, and followed by maize and other crops. And we saw a big jump, and it took country from food deficiency to food sufficiency within a period of 7 years. That was a landmark watershed moment for India's food sector. In 1991, what we saw was delicensing of industries. It is one of the economic segment of our country, and it also saw the liberalization of the financial sector. Now that was a new trigger for the production sector within the industry and the service segment, and that incentive came from market, and that we saw a jump in the growth rate of our economy. When I compare 2020, the liberalization of the agriculture relating to the post-production, these are akin to those two moments, because we are now going to see a new paradigm shift in the agriculture sector in respect of the growth of the agriculture economy, and as also the transfer of money or incomes to the farmers. And now the new trigger for the agriculture comes from the markets, unlike the 1965 that came from the technology. The farmers have always been waiting for monetization of their produce. So far, the marketing had become restrictive. Now, with the new options that are available to the farmers, they will be able to experience better services in the alternate channels. A channel of APMC that is there for the last 70 years, and a new channel that is the direct trade law that enables intrastate, interstate movement of the agriculture commodities, and larger number of traders in the form of exporters, warehousing keepers, the processors, bulk purchases will come. Always the farmers have looked forward to larger number of auctions, larger number of quotations on the produce that they bring to the auction platform.
Okay.
And therefore, I said that 2020 that liberalizes the agriculture marketing sector and provides a transparency and objectivity and a new opportunity for monetizing the produce is akin to the 1965 moment and the 1991 moment. And that's what I meant. Thank you.
Right. Now, Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, you've heard Dr. Dalwai. He's the person who was tasked with coming up with ways to suggest how farmers' income could be doubled by as early as 2022. And he believes that these bills will go a long way to do that. But on the other hand, we've seen what the opposition did in Parliament. We are seeing what's happened with an alliance and one of the oldest alliances breaking up in the country, the Akali Dal walking out of the NDA. We've seen a section of farmers protesting as well, and various reasons are being ascribed to why all this is happening. What's your take on these bills?
Well, I think I'll make three brief points. I would agree that this is indeed a paradigm shift in the way the agricultural policies in this country has evolved. It's a major change, a very significant change, and this will make a big difference to the way agricultural trade takes place in this country. That's point number one. Point number two is that the protests that you have seen so far against this particular law. Out of the three laws, one law is pertaining to the breakdown of the monopsony, so-called monopsony of the agricultural produce marketing committees.
Yes. Now
that bit, the protests are essentially coming from the big farmers and the farm traders, because 86% of India's land holdings, farming families, actually are net buyers in the market. So they don't actually go out in the market and sell their produce. It is only the 14% of the farmers who go out and sell their surplus produce. So therefore, the protest that you are seeing is largely coming from the traders who were benefiting hugely from this monopsony kind of a structure of the APMC in different states. The states are also not very happy because they may lose a lot of the revenues that they get from sales of transactions of produce from the APMC. So this is a combination of factors that have resulted in these protests. So we should not get confused by these protests and start passing our judgment on the nature of the changes that have taken place, particularly in the law that allows freer interstate and intrastate sale of commodities produced by the farmers. So therefore, what we have to make sure is this, that while APMC continues to function in a manner that it has been functioning, because they are necessary for procuring food grains, for meeting the buffer stock requirements, or performing the task of mandated under the National Food Rights Act. But we have to make sure that the infrastructure, the private sector infrastructure of buying this produce from the farmers directly, they also get a boost. So hopefully one will see that the farmers, which were earlier by and large dependent on the APMC structure, the Adhateya structure, they can now go out in the marketplace, in the mandi, the other private mandis, and they will be able to sell their produce. But the larger question, that's my final point, which is not yet been fully resolved, that in what way do you make sure that the farmers take, or what he takes home from a produce increases from what it has been so far. The data shows that in the case of wheat and paddy, just about 75% of the revenues that wheat and paddy produce is generated goes home to the farmers.
Okay.
In the case of the non-wheat and paddy items, and particularly in the case of the vegetables and other crops, the ratio is even far less. In other words, agriculture.
Let me put that to Dr. Dalwai, because he's perhaps the best man at the moment to answer that question.
The larger number of the middle trade, the middlemen take away the large chunk of the revenues from the farmers.
Okay.
So we have to create a situation by which the farmers get more money and more money for their produce.
Dr. Dalwai, I'm sure you've heard Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, and I'm sure you have an answer for that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Dr. Bhattacharya was raising a very important issue about what is the producer share in the consumer's rupee. That is called the price spread. Now, when we bring the direct trade law, which allows for intra-state and interstate direct trade between the farm gate and the trader of different nature, the intermediaries are removed or they're minimized, and that automatically increases the share of the producers in the consumer's rupee. This is to the benefit of the farmers as also the consumers. We are aware that in case of food grains, for example, particularly cereals, the producers have always enjoyed a ratio of 70 to 75%, whereas in case of perishables like fruits and vegetables, their share is much less. But the silver lining is that if we are able to organize perishables along with agri-logistics and direct marketing, as in the case of milk, the share of the producer rises to 80%. So that is the silver lining. Let me just give you a brief that what the direct trade law does is, government is conscious of the fact that we need to bring competition. We should neither allow monopoly nor monopsony. APMCs unfortunately had turned out to be cartelized systems. APMCs have served a very good purpose over the last 70 years. Let us not put the whole blame on them. At a time when India had no structured agriculture marketing, the regulated marketing system was brought into the country, and they did bring a lot of benefit to the farmers compared to what the system was before that. But then it is time to move on. We need to have positive disruptions. Now, in order to break the monopoly of a new system, we needed a second channel. And this lesson comes from the 1991 moment, where you're de-licensed and liberalized and allowed a lot of people to compete in the same segment. So now, with the alternate channel, farmers have two options, rather three options. The first option is go to the cooperative APMCs. Second option is to go to the private APMCs, because the Model APMC Act allows for setting up APMCs in the private sector.
Right.
Third option is the direct trade. So when you have three options, there will be competition and there will be better offer on the farmers to use.
The PM also mentioned that the farmers can form their own collectives, and then they can, collectively bargain with whoever wants to buy their produce at whatever level, right at their doorstep or at any other, even on the internet. The modes of transacting as well can be explored, and that will really open up the market for them to help them realize the best price. But
if you permit me, can I just say 1 minute to strengthen your argument?
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to say that government has looked at in an ecosystem approach, along with opening up a market for a free trade and fair trade. It is also aware that farmers, being weaker as a party, they need to be strengthened so that they become equal players vis-a-vis the corporate world or the large buyer.
Right.
And therefore, it has taken three steps. One is enable them to mobilize themselves into farmer producers organization. Second one is promote aggregation platforms called Grameen Agriculture Markets, so that the small producer can aggregate his produce and then bargain with the large purchaser. And third one is contract farming, so that corporate sector and the farmers as a body together are able to negotiate a price. The prices fluctuate post the harvest. So before the sowing operations are taken up, the farmers are able to bargain with the purchaser and negotiate the price fluctuations that happen. And the fourth one, which has gone to strengthen the farmers, is that their financial muscles are going to be made stronger. How is that? One is by increasing the production loan to 15 lakh crore, and the other one is also to provide the post-harvest loan through the ENWR. And all these things overarched by rupees 100,000 crore of investment in agri-infrastructure fund, so that backward.
Yes, it will be an ecosystem, but you know, let me just add to this fact that you know, in the contract farming bill, there are safeguards that are there. There is, you can appeal as well if there is some dispute, and in terms of price assurance, it's also built in. But there is what they say, Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, the fear of the unknown, the fear related to the MSP, the fear related to you know, losing your land as well. Do you feel that this is completely irrational?
No, I think what you need is that whenever there is you know, there is positive disruption, to use Mr. Dalwai's words, there is need to come out with structures and regulatory frameworks by which the financial asymmetry between the farmer's power and the buyer's power, they are tackled. Right now, I mean, you know, the suggestions of cooperative farmer-producer cooperatives are very good, and they should be given an encouragement. You need farmers' agglomeration. You need farmers to get educated and make them more aware of what is the you know, ifs and buts and pros and cons of a contract farming, because Indian farmers need to be, you know, educated in that sense, to be aware of these new systems. You know, APMC.
But these contracts, Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, they won't be in perpetuity. The maximum duration is 5 years. So where is the question of losing land?
No, when you have a contract, what happens is that the farmers need the kind of help. So therefore, there is need for some sort of a regulatory or some self-help groups or associations which will help the farmers to understand the nitty-gritties of these contracts. You know, when you have a contract from a corporate with a farmer, then how do you ensure that the farmer is not taken in or exposed to some financial risks? Right now, what happens is that he is going into APMC and Adhyateyas are taking charge of him. And of course, there is exploitation there as well in a monopsony structure. But I think when we are entering into a new space, we need to have those regulatory support systems and you know, a kind of a supervision by which.
Yes, perhaps some literacy campaigns related to contracts would also be something that would be quite useful, wouldn't it, Dr. Dalwai? And I'm sure the state governments do have a role to play over there.
I think this fear is absolutely unfounded. Let's be aware that the contract system has been in existence in the country since 2003, when we shared the first Model APMC Act and did provide for contract farming. And much before that, Punjab, for example, in 1988 allowed for contract farming with PepsiCo. And then in 2017, Model APLMC Act, we removed the contract farming provision and made an independent act, which has now become the Central Act. Let's also be very conscious that Contract Farming Act, as it stands today, is a contract for produce and not for land. If you go and make a survey where there have been large number of contracts in Punjab and elsewhere, nowhere will you find that land has become a compromise. The law is very clear, absolutely clear, that no ownership, right, title and deed can be compromised. It shall be a contract only for the produce, it shall be for the price, it shall be for technology, it shall be for extension services. I think there is a misunderstanding, there is an unfounded apprehension. Government is very clear, and after all, the land management, land revenue is a state authority, state authorization constitutionally. Government of India cannot do anything about that. So I think that we need not fear that the land can be compromised, or a corporate sector or a private sector can take over the land. It will not happen, and we shall not allow for that.
And at the same time, Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, the question of again doubling farmers' income is what it's all about. That is the intended goal. That is what the government is set out to achieve. And do you feel that in your assessment there is a way to achieve that through these bills, they can be instruments of doing that?
Well, if these bills lead to creation of more farmer producer cooperatives, which will lead greater income and recovery of their costs, and the spread that is right now very, very low in most crops and most vegetables, if that the income spread is raised through a variety of means, then I guess the targets will probably be worth looking at.
Dr. Dalwai, your final comments, because Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya had a lot of ifs in there.
We need not be worried about that at all. We should not be afraid of that. We are confident that the doubling farmers' income strategy is in the right direction. What we find by analysis is that crop diversification is extremely important. In fact, the income elasticity in case of fruits, vegetables, livestock, fisheries is much more than the crop segment like the paddy and wheat and other kinds of cereals. Now, the new laws which allow for a free market supported by agri-infrastructure through 100,000 crore is going to enable crop diversification from the cereals to high-value agriculture like fruits and vegetables and other segments of horticulture, as also dairy, livestock, fisheries. And therefore, the farmers are going to get better incomes. Their returns on investment in case of these high-value agriculture are going to be much more. Let me also clarify that MSP should not be confused with the open market approach. The APMC system combined with the new direct trade law, these are open market interventions. MSP is a system of price signaling. MSP-based procurement is a fallback mechanism.
Okay.
The government assures that if the prices of the markets fall, then I come in there to procure. The government's aim is to ensure that we create a competitive, transparent, and objective marketing system where price discoveries happen to the advantage of farmers and they get more than MSP. I don't understand why everybody is harping on MSP. It is minimum support price. We would like to aim at a system of marketing where the farmers get more than MSP. MSP becomes a threshold limit because agriculture markets cannot be perfect, not just in India, anywhere in the world.
Yes, that's the whole problem, that hue and cry about these issues is obfuscating understanding about it. So I guess the first thing for the country's farmers to do would be to educate themselves, understand what's happened, and then figure out ways to maximize their advantage that the government wants to give them with these bills. I'm afraid we completely ran out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Dalwai and Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, during the radio program that the Prime Minister did today, Man Ki Baat, he also paid homage to freedom fighters, the like of Shahid Bhagat Singh, whose birth anniversary falls on the 28th of September. He said apart from being courageous, Bhagat Singh also understood the importance of teamwork while also hailing the role of legendary leaders ranging from Mahatma Gandhi to Vijayaraje Scindia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi remembered the great freedom fighter Shahid Bhagat Singh through his Man Ki Baat program. Shahid Bhagat Singh was born on the 28th of September 1907. Ahead of his birth anniversary, the Prime Minister paid tributes to the paragon of courage and bravery, Shahid Bhagat Singh. The PM said that another beautiful aspect of Shahid Bhagat Singh's life was that he understood the importance of teamwork very well.
शहीद भगत सिंह पराक्रमी होने के साथ साथ विद्वान भी थे, चिंतक थे। अपने जीवन की चिंता किए बगैर भगत सिंह और उनके क्रांतिवीर साथियों ने ऐसे साहसिक कार्यों को अंजाम दिया जिनका देश की आजादी में बहुत बड़ा योगदान रहा। शहीद वीर भगत सिंह के जीवन का एक और खूबसूरत पहलू यह है कि वे टीम वर्क के महत्व को बखूबी समझते थे।
Prime Minister Modi also remembered many great personalities who've made an indelible contribution in the making of India. He said that the 2nd of October is an auspicious and inspirational day for all of us. The PM remembered the two great sons of India, Mahatma Gandhi and Lal Bahadur Shastri. The PM said, by getting inspired by them, every action of ours should be done for the benefit of the poorest of the poor.
2 अक्टूबर हम सबके लिए पवित्र और प्रेरक दिवस होता है। यह दिन माँ भारती के दो सपूतों महात्मा गांधी और लाल बहादुर शास्त्री को याद करने का दिन है। पूज्य बापू के विचार और आदर्श आज पहले से कहीं ज्यादा प्रासंगिक है। महात्मा गांधी का जो आर्थिक चिंतन था, अगर उस स्पिरिट को पकड़ा गया होता, समझा गया होता, उस रास्ते पर चला गया होता, तो आज आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ती।
Remembering Bharat Ratna Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan and Bharat Ratna Nanaji Deshmukh, the PM said that they played a pioneering role in safeguarding our democratic values.
11 अक्टूबर का दिन भी हमारे लिए बहुत ही विशेष होता है। इस दिन हम भारत रत्न लोकनायक जयप्रकाश जी को उनकी जयंती पर स्मरण करते हैं। जेपी ने हमारे लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों की रक्षा में अग्रणी भूमिका निभाई है। हम भारत रत्न नानाजी देशमुख को भी याद करते हैं, जिनकी जयंती भी 11 तारीख को ही है।
Referring to Rajmata Vijayaraje Scindia, the Prime Minister said that she devoted her entire life to the service of the people. 12th of October will mark the conclusion of her birth centenary year celebrations.
इस 12 अक्टूबर को राजमाता विजयाराजे सिंधिया जी की भी जयंती है। उन्होंने अपना पूरा जीवन लोगों की सेवा में समर्पित कर दिया। वे एक राज परिवार से थी। उनके पास संपत्ति, शक्ति और दूसरे संसाधनों की कोई कमी नहीं थी, लेकिन फिर भी उन्होंने अपना जीवन एक मां की तरह वात्सल्य भाव से जन सेवा के लिए खपा दिया।
Prime Minister Modi also referred to the courage, bravery and valiance of Indian soldiers during the surgical strike. The PM said that our brave soldiers had just one mission and one goal: to protect at all costs the glory and honor of Mother India.
4 साल पहले लगभग यही समय था जब सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक के दौरान दुनिया ने हमारे जवानों के साहस, शौर्य और निर्भीकता को देखा था। हमारे बहादुर सैनिकों का एक ही मकसद और एक ही लक्ष्य था: हर कीमत पर भारत मां के गौरव और सम्मान की रक्षा करना। उन्होंने अपनी जिंदगी की जरा भी परवाह नहीं की। वे अपने कर्तव्य पथ पर आगे बढ़ते गए और हम सब ने देखा कि किस प्रकार वे विजयी होकर के सामने आए, भारत माता का गौरव बढ़ाए।
Through the Mann Ki Baat program, Prime Minister Modi remembered the great freedom fighters while mentioning the remarkable work of the brave soldiers protecting the country. Bureau Report, DD India. Also emphasizing on the beauty of storytelling, Prime Minister Modi in his Mann Ki Baat program said, "Where there is a soul, there is a story." He not only interacted with storytellers on various aspects of storytelling, but also asked one of the storytellers to narrate a story during the program. Here's more.
During these times of corona, the entire world is passing through multiple cycles of change. While the pandemic has brought families together, there are many families finding it tough to live through the corona times. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his special radio program of Mann Ki Baat has urged people to stay together in families through storytelling. He added that stories bring to the fore the creative and sensitive aspect of one's personality.
कहानियों का इतिहास उतना ही पुराना है जितनी की मानव सभ्यता। Where there is a soul, there is a story. कहानियां लोगों के रचनात्मक और संवेदनशील पक्ष को सामने लाती हैं, उसे प्रकट करती हैं। कहानी की ताकत को महसूस करना हो तो जब कोई माँ अपने छोटे बच्चों को सुलाने के लिए या फिर उसे खाना खिलाने के लिए कहानी सुना रही होती है, तब देखें।
Prime Minister Modi said that there has been a thriving tradition of storytelling in India. He added that we are proud that we are citizens of the country where there has been a tradition of Hitopdesh and Panchatantra.
भारत में कहानी कहने की या कहें किस्सा गोई की एक समृद्ध परंपरा रही है। हमें गर्व है कि हम उस देश के वासी हैं जहां हितोपदेश और पंचतंत्र की परंपरा रही है, जहां कहानियों में पशु पक्षियों और परियों की काल्पनिक दुनिया गढ़ी गई ताकि विवेक और बुद्धिमत्ता की बातों को आसानी से समझाया जा सके। हमारे यहाँ कथा की परंपरा रही है।
Prime Minister Modi urged people to spend quality time with their families. He told them to take out some time for storytelling every week, stories related to religion or India's freedom struggle. And then the family sits together to listen to these stories.
मैं जरूर आपसे आग्रह करूंगा, परिवार में हर सप्ताह आप कहानियों के लिए कोई समय निकालिए। और ये भी कर सकते हैं कि परिवार के हर सदस्य को हर सप्ताह के लिए एक विषय तय करें। जैसे मानो करुणा है, संवेदनशीलता है, पराक्रम है, त्याग है, शौर्य है, कोई एक भाव। और परिवार के सभी सदस्य उस सप्ताह एक ही विषय पर सबके सब लोग कहानी ढूंढेंगे और परिवार के सब मिलकर के एक एक कहानी कहेंगे। आप देखिए परिवार में कितना बड़ा खजाना हो जाएगा, रिसर्च का कितना बढ़िया काम हो जाएगा, हर किसी को कितना आनंद आएगा और परिवार में एक नई प्राण, नई ऊर्जा आएगी। उसी प्रकार से हम एक काम और भी कर सकते हैं। मैं कथा सुनाने वाले सबसे आग्रह करूंगा, हम आजादी के 75 वर्ष मनाने जा रहे हैं। क्या हम हमारी कथाओं में पूरे गुलामी के कालखंड की जितनी प्रेरक घटनाएं हैं उनको कथाओं में प्रचारित कर सकते हैं? विशेषकर 1857 से 1947 तक हर छोटी मोटी घटना से हम हमारी नई पीढ़ी को कथाओं के द्वारा परिचित करा सकते हैं।
Prime Minister Modi highlighted the importance of storytelling in building one's personality. He said that effort should be made to strengthen the art of storytelling in our country. Prime Minister, through his Mann Ki Baat program, also requested one of the storytellers to narrate a story. Bureau Report, DD News.
A total of 92,043 people have recuperated from COVID-19 in a span of 24 hours, taking India's total recoveries close to the 50 lakh mark and exceeding the active cases of coronavirus infections by 39,85,225. The single-day recoveries on an average for the last few days have been more than 90,000. More in this report.
India's continued efforts to fight against COVID-19 is yielding results. The number of people recovering from the virus is constantly increasing and the death rate is also falling. India has also set a new record in corona testing. India has been recording higher number of recoveries than the new cases for several days in the recent past. 92,043 new recoveries have been reported in the last 24 hours. 76% of these cases have been found in 10 states and union territories. Maharashtra tops the list and is followed by Andhra Pradesh. Prime Minister has once again reminded people of the need to wear a mask and to not venture out without a face shield. He has also stressed upon the need to maintain 2 gaz ki duri or a distance of 2 yards that will protect people and their families.
कोरोना के इस कालखंड में मैं फिर एक बार आपको याद कराऊंगा, मास्क अवश्य रखें, फेस कवर के बिना बाहर न जाएं, 2 गज की दूरी का नियम आपको भी बचा सकता है, आपके परिवार को भी बचा सकता है। ये कुछ नियम हैं, इस कोरोना के खिलाफ लड़ाई के हथियार हैं, हर नागरिक के जीवन को बचाने के मजबूत साधन है। और हम न भूलें, जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं।
Meanwhile, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan has warned against complacency and said that the masks should be worn during prayers at religious places also. He was answering questions in the 3rd edition of Sunday Dialogue on social media. Dr. Harshvardhan also urged the states to keep the cost of COVID tests to a minimum. He stressed that by year 2025, Centre is committed to increase its spending on healthcare from 1.5% to 2.5% of the GDP. As part of efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath also held a review meeting via video conference. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And Home Minister Amit Shah launched Destination Northeast 2020 via video link on Sunday on the occasion of World Tourism Day. Union Minister for Development of North Eastern Region Jitendra Singh was the guest of honor at the event. The aim of the 4-day event is to boost tourism and other economic activities in the northeast of the country during and after the COVID era.
Home Minister Amit Shah inaugurated the Destination Northeast 2020 on the occasion of World Tourism Day. Addressing the program, Amit Shah said that unparalleled diversity, unique culture and traditions can make Northeast an attractive tourism destination of the world.
मनोहरी सुंदरता की भूमि, हरा परिदृश्य, नीला जल, सुखद शांति, अनंत विशालता मंत्रमुग्ध करने वाली स्थानीय आबादी का एक अद्भुत मिश्रण का परिचय पूरी दुनिया को नॉर्थ ईस्ट कराता है। यहाँ प्रकृति का अछूता सौंदर्य है, जनजातीय संस्कृति और सभ्यता है, जीव जंतु पेड़ पौधों के अलावे लोक संस्कृति कलाओं से भरपूर एक क्षेत्र विश्व भर के पर्यटन का केंद्र बनने के सभी गुण रखता है।
Addressing the function over video conferencing, Home Minister said, creating peace in the region was essential to encourage tourism and employment opportunities. Earlier, Northeast used to be synonymous with extremism, strikes and violence. In the past 6.5 years, the region is known for development, industry, organic farming and startups.
नॉर्थ ईस्ट को अगर आर्थिक दृष्टि से आगे बढ़ाना है, पर्यटन की दृष्टि से आगे बढ़ाना है, रोजगार की दृष्टि से आगे बढ़ाना है, तो ये बहुत जरूरी था कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट के अंदर शांति बनी रहे। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के प्रधानमंत्री बनने के बाद 6.5 साल के अंदर नॉर्थ ईस्ट जो कभी आतंकवाद, बंद, हिंसा इसके कारण सुर्खियों में रहता था, इसकी जगह आज विकास, नई लगने वाली इंडस्ट्री, युवाओं का आगे बढ़ना और ऑर्गेनिक खेती, नए स्टार्टअप, इसके कारण देश भर में चर्चा में है।
On the occasion, Doner Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh said, Destination Northeast 2020 will help promote tourism activities in the region. With improving connectivity through air, rail and road network, Northeast will emerge as a top global destination.
जहाँ तक डेस्टिनेशन नॉर्थ ईस्ट का संबंध है, ये प्रयोग हमने इस कल्पना के साथ प्रारंभ किया था कि शेष भारत को ये समझने की आवश्यकता है कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कितने सारे अनएक्सप्लोर्ड पोटेंशियल्स हैं जो कभी तलाशे नहीं गए, जब खोजे नहीं गए, और कितने वहाँ पर व्यापार, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के नए नए अवसर उपलब्ध हो सकते हैं।
Destination Northeast is a calendar event of Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region conceptualized with the objective of taking Northeast region to other parts of the country and bringing them closer together in order to strengthen national integration. For Destination Northeast 2020, the theme is Emerging Delightful Destinations. The 4-day program will feature audio-visual presentation of tourist spots of states and the region, messages from state icons and achievers, introduction to prominent local entrepreneurs and virtual exhibition of handicraft, traditional fashion and local products. Northeastern region is ideal for both passive and adventure forms of ecotourism with wildlife sanctuary, parks, good scenic beauty, waterfalls, forests and so on. Heritage tourism has picked up considerably in the region with participatory approach. The region has many famous and old religious spots as well, which have been integrated with national tourism circuits. Also, in view of attractive natural and growing trends of outbound business meets, the region also offers ample opportunities for business tourism segment. With Chandrasekhar and Sudhir Yadav, News Night Desk, DD India.
Soldier turned politician and also referred to by many who knew him as former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's Hanuman breathed his last on Sunday morning in New Delhi. Jaswant Singh was 82. He was learned, astute and had a way with words that few could boast of. Tributes poured in from both home and abroad from those who knew and admired him and his contributions for the nation. Here's our report.
Former Union Minister Jaswant Singh, a close aide of former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, died on Sunday morning in New Delhi. He was 82. He died after a cardiac arrest at Delhi's Army Hospital, where he was admitted. Jaswant Singh was admitted on 25th of June this year and was being treated for sepsis and multi-organ dysfunction syndrome and effects of severe head injuries. Expressing his grief over Singh's demise, President Ramnath Kovind in a tweet said, "The demise of veteran soldier, outstanding parliamentarian, exceptional leader and intellectual, Shri Jaswant Singh is distressing. He combined many different roles with ease and equanimity. My heartfelt condolences to his family and friends." Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also condoled the death of BJP veteran and former Union Minister, saying he was a man of impeccable integrity, an able administrator and an excellent parliamentarian. In a tweet, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also said that the seasoned leader served our nation diligently, first as a soldier and later during his long association with politics. The Prime Minister tweeted, Jaswant Singh Ji will be remembered for his unique perspective on matters of politics and society. He also contributed to the strengthening of the BJP. I will always remember our interactions. Condolences to his family and supporters. Om Shanti. Union Home Minister Amit Shah also took to Twitter to offer tributes to the departed leader. He wrote, "The death of Jaswant Singh Ji, a senior politician of the country and a minister in Atal Ji's cabinet, is sad and an irreparable loss for the country. While in various positions in government and organization, he has left a deep impression on his duty. I express my condolences to his family. Om Shanti." Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also took to Twitter to offer condolences. He tweeted, "Shri Jaswant Singh Ji would be remembered for his intellectual capabilities and stellar record in service to the nation. He also played a key role in strengthening the BJP in Rajasthan. Condolences to his family and supporters in this sad hour. Om Shanti." Expressing grief, Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar said that Jaswant Singh was an associate of former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and his experience of administration was seen in the Vajpayee government. Jaswant Singh was born on 3rd of January 1938 in village Jasol in Barmer district of Rajasthan. With a BA and a BSc degree, he was educated at Mayo College in Ajmer and later joined the Indian Army as a cavalry officer in the 1950s and 60s, living up to his childhood ambition. Later on, Singh gave up his commission and joined politics in early 70s. Over the years, he held several high-profile portfolios like external affairs, defense, surface transport and finance. He often acted as former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's globe-trotting troubleshooter. During the Vajpayee administration, that is from 1998 to 2004, he held some of the highest offices such as finance, external affairs and defense. The veteran leader also authored 6 books. Singh's other interests included international affairs, defense, environment, ecology and wildlife. He was a huge fan of golf and chess. The country indeed lost a true gem of the Indian politics. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
An officer and a gentleman, and he will be missed. Now, a Ladakhi organization withdrew its call for boycotting the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council polls after getting assurances from 2 central ministers on Sunday related to the protection of their language, jobs, land and demography. A group of Ladakhi leaders had also met Home Minister Amit Shah on Saturday in this connection. Here's more.
An influential organization of Ladakh on Sunday withdrew its call for a boycott of the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council polls in Leh. The decision was arrived after the centre assured that its demands for protection of local language, jobs, land and demography will be considered positively. On Sunday, a delegation representing the people of Ladakh met Union Ministers Kiren Rijiju and G. Kishan Reddy. Earlier, the delegation met with Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Saturday.
जब ये ऑटोनोमस हिल डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल का चुनाव हो जाएंगे, खत्म होते ही विदिन 15 डेज के साथ साथ हम लोग प्रोसेस शुरू कर देंगे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में और बाकी कानूनी जो भी जरूरत पड़ेगा ये सेफगार्ड के लिए वो कदम उठाया जाएगा। संविधान के जो 6 शेड्यूल है, 6 शेड्यूल में जो प्रोविजन जो लद्दाख की लोग जो डिमांड कर रहे हैं उसको भी देखेंगे, उसको भी इनकॉर्पोरेट करेंगे और बाकी जो प्रावधान है उस पे भी गौर करेंगे।
Union Home Minister Amit Shah also assured the delegation of the People's Movement for Constitutional Safeguard under 6th schedule for Ladakh that the central government is committed to empower the LAHDC of Leh and Kargil and would protect the interests of the people of the Union Territory.
इतना अच्छा एश्योरेंस मिलने के बाद गृह मंत्री जी की ओर से तो हमारा डेलीगेशन ने उनका डिमांड, उनके जो सोच को यहाँ समझा और यहाँ बहुत पॉजिटिवली इसको एश्योरेंस दिया, तो इसके चलते डेलीगेशन ने जो बॉयकॉट कॉल को विड्रॉ करके स्मूथ इलेक्शन के लिए अपील भी करेंगे और वो मदद भी करेंगे।
Amit Shah also assured that the centre would explore all avenues towards this objective, including under the 6th schedule of Constitution. The delegation has now agreed to withdraw its call for the boycott of the ensuing LHDC Leh elections and also promised support to the smooth conduct of the elections. With inputs from Girish Nishana in New Delhi, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
In the same theatre, engaged in a standoff with China for almost 5 months, The Indian Army's armoured regiments are ready to take on the adversary at altitudes of over 14,500 feet in an area which is the world's highest battlefield for tanks and infantry combat vehicles in eastern Ladakh. The Indian Army is also working on war footing to fight the extremely harsh winters by building new shelters and prefabricated structures for the soldiers. The eastern Ladakh area witnesses the harshest winters, where temperatures normally dip to minus 35 degrees Celsius in the night during the winters, coupled with strong and frigid winds.
The Indian Army conducted an exercise in the high-altitude Himalayan desert of Ladakh on Sunday, after it deployed tanks at the highest possible altitude in the world to manage the standoff at the LAC. T-20 and T-72 tanks of the Indian Army and BMP-2 infantry combat vehicle participated in the drill near the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh territory. The capability of Indian tank regiments was on full display in the region, where the Indus River flows all along the eastern Ladakh sector. Mechanized infantry of the Indian Army has the experience of working under any weather conditions and any terrain.
There is no doubt that the winters in Ladakh are going to be harsh and bitterly cold. We are absolutely in control as far as our advanced winter stocking and forward winter stocking is concerned. High calorific and nutritional rations, fuel, oil and lubricants, special winter clothing, winter tentage and heating appliances are all available in adequate numbers. Since different areas will require different types of habitat, various types of habitat have already been catered for.
Army is logistically prepared in terms of tackling the harsh winter weather, with the special winter clothing and other facilities such as fuel, spares and assemblies being kept in place. The Indian Army is also making habitation of the soldiers on a war footing by placing prefabricated container shelters and barrel shelters that use minimum cement and sand. In these shelters, there is proper insulation to protect soldiers from strong winds and winter, proper heating facilities, along with other basic needs.
We are in a position to ensure that before the winters completely set in, every soldier in the front line will have a winter tent. With all the required arrangements, soldiers at other places will be billeted in state-of-the-art habitats, as you have just witnessed. The terrain is tough and the weather is going to be harsh, and we are ready for both. Jai Hind.
The Indian Army's Corps of Engineers working on the shelter erection have used the latest technology to provide soldiers with the habitat. The message is clear to everyone, be it harsh weather or the adversary. The Indian Army is going to leave no stone unturned to defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the nation. News Night Desk, DD India.
It's time now to get to some more nationwide updates. The centre has directed deployment of about 30,000 Central Security Force personnel for the conduct of the three-phase assembly polls in Bihar. Union Home Ministry has directed that 300 companies of the Central Armed Police Forces and the Railway Protection Force will be deployed for area domination to ensure peaceful conduct of assembly polls in the state. Former Bihar DGP Gupteshwar Pandey joined the state's ruling JDU on Sunday amid indications he would contest the assembly polls beginning next month. Pandey joined the party in the presence of Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, who is also JDU president, less than a week after taking voluntary retirement from service. Two unidentified terrorists were killed in an encounter with security forces in Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama district on Sunday. Security forces launched a cordon and search operation in the Sambura area of Avantipora after receiving specific information about the presence of terrorists there. In the exchange of fire, 2 terrorists were killed. The identity and a group affiliation of the slain ultras is still being ascertained. Former Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis on Sunday asserted that the BJP has no intention of joining hands with the Shiv Sena or to bring down the Uddhav Thackeray-led state government. Talking to reporters, Fadnavis claimed people of the state are unhappy with the performance of the Shiv Sena-led Mahavikas Aghadi government. A Mumbai court on Sunday remanded Kshitij Ravi Prasad in the NCP's custody till 3rd of October following his arrest in a drugs case linked to Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput's death. Prasad was arrested by the NCB on Saturday after questioning. His name cropped up during the NCB's wider probe into the alleged Bollywood drugs nexus. And now for some updates from around the globe as well. Fighting erupted anew on Sunday between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the disputed separatist region of Nagorno-Karabakh. Armenia said a woman and a child were killed in the area by shelling from Azerbaijani forces, and Azerbaijan's president said his military has suffered losses. Armenia also claimed that 2 Azerbaijani helicopters were shot down and 3 Azerbaijani tanks were hit by artillery, but Azerbaijan's defense ministry rejected that claim. Heavy fighting broke out on Sunday morning in the region that lies within Azerbaijan but has been under the control of ethnic Armenian forces backed by Armenia since 1994 at the end of a separatist war. Pope Francis on Sunday prayed for peace in the Caucasus region after clashes erupted between Armenia and Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh region. The Argentinian pontiff then asked the faithful to join him in a silent prayer for the region. US President Donald Trump has nominated Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, and she pledged to become a justice in the mold of the late staunch conservative Antonin Scalia, another milestone in Trump's rightward shift of the top US judicial body. Trump said the Senate will likely open hearings on his 3rd Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, on the 12th of October, and he expected full Senate vote before the 3rd of November election. Firefighters on Sunday were tackling a wildfire that threatened the national park Salfera de Alusudia on the Spanish island of Majorca. The wildfire burned 438 hectares of land and affected some houses in the area. The fire started on Friday and deteriorated due to heavy winds. 20 firefighters on the ground were still battling the flames on Sunday, but overnight rain was helping to bring it under control. And as far as the UN is concerned, well, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has pledged a 30% increase in funding to the World Health Organization while addressing the general debate of the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly via video call on Saturday. Johnson gave his backing to the WHO as the body that marshals humanity against disease with more funding, and also pledged more money for international vaccine research. And that's all we have for the moment in this edition of News Night, but the latest countries right here on DD India and DD News. Stay tuned.